How can I look at that deal quickly and say, yeah, this is something I want to pass on versus, okay, no, this is something I want to dig deeper into. Now, there are dozens of questions you can ask, right? We're only going to give you 7 that gives you a decent top line idea if it's a deal you want to look into. The first thing is this, and that is, does the deal have a pref, or what is commonly called a preferred rate? Now, we target 8% as a preferred rate. So what is it? Well, it's simply this. The first 8% of the profit of that particular project goes to the investors before the general partners, the people who've put the whole deal together and are running the property, before they get paid, okay? So in other words, the reason that's important is because you as an investor want to know that you're gonna get the first fruits of that property, and it's an incentive for the general manager or the general partner, the operator. It's an incentive for them to get beyond 8% profit, because if they don't get paid. So this is a good place to start when you're evaluating a new deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the next thing is the hold period. So is the hold period 5 years? Is it 6 years? Is it 10 years? So that's going to be important, because all of the financial modeling is based upon the targeted hold period of the project. So if there's the equity multiple, the average annual return, all of that is modeled based on the exit target. So you want to look at that and understand, is that average annual return sufficient for that hold period and so forth.
And Mike, how else would that determine if this is a right investment for someone, that hold period?
Well, really, if it fits your investment horizon. I mean, do you want to be in a deal for 5 years or 10 years? I mean, a lot of that has to do with personal preference and what is your financial plan.
Gotcha. So the next thing I'm going to look at, I want to check out their business model for raising rents. Where I'm going to find that is a comps section, right? And I want to look in those comps to see what are like properties in that area renting apartments for. Okay, so if mine are currently renting out at like $800 a month, but the comps around me that are similar property in age and size and what have you are renting out for $1,000 a month, well, that tells me that I've got a spread to increase rents. And that's very important, because as we're able to increase rents over time, we're able to increase the net operating income of that property, so that when we go to sell that property in 5 or so years, there is a premium that is sought for the sale of that property.
Debt service coverage ratio, or the DSCR, kind of a complicated term, but really it's a measure of how much the cash flow will cover the debt, right? So for example, if there's $100 in debt and your cash flow is $150, your debt service coverage is 1.50. Very simple.
So my question, Mike, is what does a bank want to see? Like, what's a good gap that a bank wants to?
A lot of banks want to see a debt service of 1.25 at a minimum. So when you have your pro forma and projections and you're applying for an agency debt or a loan, they want to see at least a 1.25.
Gotcha.
Typically.
Okay, so that brings me to the next thing we're going to look at, and that is the financing on the deal. All right. So what we're looking at here is we want to see agency debt. Right? We want to see about a 30-year amortization. We want to see locked interest rates. So we don't want to deal with a variable interest rate. In fact, many of our partners will purchase a interest rate cap so that it doesn't go beyond what they're expecting. Another feature we're going to look at in the financing of one of these projects is interest-only payments. Now, I get questions on that, because sometimes an investor will say, well, time out. Why would you want an interest-only payment? Because you're not paying down the principal on the debt, and you're not increasing equity. The reason we are looking for interest-only payments is because that's not how we're increasing equity in the project. Having interest-only payments allows us to pay the investors their premium, but we're gaining equity in the project by increasing the net operating income, not by paying down the loan. And that's why that's a very important feature of the financing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with financing, there are also other features. For example, what's the prepayment penalty? Sometimes, if the project is being sold a year early, the prepayment penalty could be $1 million. It could be very significant, which is all going to come out of profit. Other things are, for example, is this a recourse loan? Is it a non-recourse loan? So paying attention to the features of the debt is very important, and asking the syndicator, the sponsor, to lay that out for you is very important.
Yep. Another one's going to be the average annual return. Mike, what is that?
Yes, the average annual return is the combination of the profit coming from distributions of cash flow, which happen either monthly or quarterly, and the profit at sale. So both of those together make up the average annual return. So for example, say if I invest $50,000, and the distributions over, let's just say 5 years, and the profit I receive at the back end, say that's $50,000, that's a 100% return, right? Or that's a 100% ROI, but divided by the whole period, 5 years, that's 20% per year. That's the average annual return.
Good. And the last thing we're going to look at is the equity multiple, which is very, very simple. I want to know how far is my invested money going to go. So an equity multiple that we target is 2%. What that means is if I invest $50,000 and have $50,000 returned, well, that's a 1x. I just had my investment returned, that's it. But if I invest $50,000, have my $50,000 returned and gain another $50,000, now the equity multiple is 2x, right? And so we want to target hovering around that 2x number on roughly a 5-year hold. The question Mike and I ask is, can we double our money in 5 years? So those are the 7 questions you want to ask to quickly evaluate a deal.